Hello there, everybody. I'm Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Business Coach. I'm the founder of the Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program, creator of Dream Business Academy, founder of No Hassle Newsletters, which is my extraordinary done for you newsletter program, now serving over 1,200 small business owners in 9 countries. But most importantly, I am the host of Dream Business Radio, now in its 10th year. This is episode 528. We're celebrating with another fantastic live edition with a really great guest today, Nick Loper. Nick, how are you doing?
Doing well, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm really excited to talk to you. And before we jump in, before I got to do my own little spot here, this episode of Dream Business Radio Live is brought to you by the Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program. Why? Because it's my show. So if you're an entrepreneur, a small business owner who's tired of slow to no growth in your business, if you're feeling overwhelmed, unfocused, and especially really, especially if you'd like to create multiple streams of revenue in your business, then you want to be part of this extraordinary mastermind led by me, Captain Jim. And you can find out more information at Dream Biz Coaching. That's dreambizcoaching.com. All right, let me tell you a little bit about Nick. This is going to be a very fun show. Nick is an author, a multi-author, entrepreneur, a lifelong student in the game of business. His latest role is that of chief side hustler at sidehustlenation.com. It's a growing community and resource for aspiring and part-time entrepreneurs. He's been making his living online since before it was cool. Seems like there was a country. So I was country before it was cool. Nick probably doesn't listen to country music, but anyway, he's been making a living online before it was cool. Anyway, he's picked up a thing or two about small businesses, marketing, and outsourcing. He's happy to share the experience with fellow entrepreneurs, which is why he is coming on this show. He is the host of the top-rated Side Hustle Show podcast, and he explores different ideas each week, helping listeners discover the path to new job-free income streams. Nick, once again, welcome to Dream Business Radio. How you doing, my friend?
You bet. Well, thanks for having me. It's like that old Brad Paisley song, so much cooler online. Yes.
I know.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So
Episode 528. You and I are in a similar
528?
place.
Is that right?
Just past 500 episodes as well. So, yeah, awesome to talk to another fellow media host here.
Somebody who didn't give up after the 59th episode, right?
Yes. Gotta get in those
it's so
reps.
easy. It's so easy doing this every week for 10 years now. But there must be a reason you're doing it. So anyway, my loyal listeners always love not only the tips and strategies and things like that, but they always tell me, I love the backstories. They love to be inspired. So I'm sure you didn't just wake up one day and create Side Hustle Nation, figuring out what it's like to be an entrepreneur without direct deposit paycheck and paid vacation. Tell us a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur, Nick.
It's an intimidating leap to make to say, yeah, can I really cut my own paycheck? For me, it was painting houses in college was a very formative experience. Mine was through, there are several of these different outfits. Mine was through one called College Works Painting. There's student painters, there's College Pro, but they all kind of operate similarly where, we're going to assign you a zip code, we're going to assign you a territory, and we're going to show you how to estimate jobs and set you free into the wild and see how many
Pay
jobs
off
you can go and
those
sell.
student loans.
And it was, it was pretty intimidating in a lot of ways, like, rolling up to my territory, some rainy March afternoon in the Northwest and sitting in my truck, trying to psych myself up to go knock on that first door. Cause that's like, well, how are you going to get customers? You're going to go cold calling for them. It's like, all right, build up the nerve to go do it. Knock, 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 anybody home? I think, thankfully nobody was home at that first house. Like, okay, that wasn't so bad. You go on to the next one and you get your spiel down. But that was my first taste of working for profits and not wages. And it was a bunch of 19-year-olds with paint sprayers. It was an exercise in problem solving. Everything that can go wrong, does go wrong. And it was, but it was really cool to stand back at the end of the week and say, look at the transformation that we made to this house. And stand back at the end of the summer and say, hey, we did that a couple dozen times. And that was really cool. From there, started dabbling in online business, first with a internship with this Seattle family owned shoe store that in the
Mm.
early days of the internet had this wild and crazy idea. Well, what would happen if we put some of our inventory online? Would anybody buy it? By the time I
Before
came on,
Zappos, you mean?
yeah, pre Zappos, like before, I think they started like in '96 out of this, single location brick and mortar shoe store. And by the time I came on board as their lowly marketing intern. Of course, the online portion of their business had grown way, way faster. And so that was my first taste of e commerce and affiliate marketing and SEO and pay per click advertising, all sorts of things that ended up being really valuable experience early on. So I took that and became an affiliate of theirs for my original side
Mm.
hustle, which was a comparison shopping site for shoes. As I was working corporate post graduation, this was like my baby. This is what I was like building nights and weekends,
Yep.
coming home from work, trying to sell shoes on the internet, and it was 3 years of nights and weekends before I got up the nerve to turn in the keys to the company car and give my notice and become a
It didn't happen
full time
overnight for
entrepreneur.
you?
Unfortunately, no. I do remember kind of the empowering moment of still living relatively frugally and making enough money from the side business to like pay for my rent and being being so empowered going into work the next day after having done the math on like what you made last month and was like, this job is gravy. Like I don't even need you like, if it all went away tomorrow, like I'd still be okay. That was like a really cool, empowering moment to try and get the side business to cover your expenses.
That is so awesome. You have a very good website, by the way, sidehustlenation.com. And I know I saw you write, this is about the experiments along the way. It's the journey, but it's also about building a future of real financial freedom. And yes, you can steer your own financial destiny. Share a little more about how you finally did that, which I guess you just did. It took a couple of years before you turned in the car to your former employer.
Yeah, this is, on the one hand, it's positioning everything as an experiment, and business owners, your audience is like going to be well familiar with this already. For me, it was like, how do I lessen the sting of the inevitable failures that come along the way? And it was, starting with knocking on doors. Like, what would happen if I said this instead of this? Like, like doing A/B testing, split testing, like on a very small scale. Oh, this line tends to get a better reaction, or this line gets some laughs. Like, okay, let's go with that. Um, but positioning everything as an experiment, at least for me, has been helpful in like, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to give it 30 days, 90 days, I'm gonna see what happens, see if I like doing
Right.
it, see what kind of reaction it gets in the market. And then we're going to reevaluate. And if it doesn't work, like, okay, that's not a death sentence. It's not you're a horrible failure. It's okay. Let's dust off. Let's try something next. Try something different the next time. But really steering your own destiny. This is where the Side Hustle Nation name comes from an old baseball coach of mine. He's like, look, you're going to have bad days at the plate. You're going to have bad days in the field. Hustle never slumps. This is one element of your game that you always have control over. And so that was something that really stuck with me from, age 10, 11, 12, or whenever that was to today. It's like, okay, I can always control my effort, my own hustle. And it's not necessarily burning the candle at both ends, not necessarily, rise and grind, hustle 24/7. Like that stuff is not sustainable, but it is, if you're going to be putting in the effort, you got to be proactive about it.
I was reading on your website, and it's it was interesting to me because I think of a side hustle. Obviously, I an entrepreneur. I live in the entrepreneurial space, so I'm thinking like an entrepreneur. But it's interesting to me that a side hustle, which could be entrepreneurial in nature, may be different if you still have a job, right? So do people look at like why do people create side hustles? To make money. I'm guessing to pay off debt, escape the rat race, to have vacation. Do people, in your experience, by the way, I'm known for very long questions because I just, but to people who start the side hustles, are they looking just to do something a little extra, or is it I'm going to dip my toe in the entrepreneurial water and see if I can turn it into something full time? Do you have any experience with that?
Yeah, I think you hit on the big motivational factors. Like, yeah, I'd like to make extra money, but well, why? What's you try and peel back the layers. Well, why is that important to you? And ultimately, it comes back to I'd love to be able to call my own shots, to be in charge of my own destiny, to be in
Mm,
control of my own calendar. And if it eventually becomes the thing that replaces the day job income, that's a really empowering place to be. And that's kind of the goal for a lot of people. And I'll say too, on the other end of the spectrum, some people are like, look, if I can make an extra $500 a month to pay down debt or build up a
Yeah.
vacation fund, like that would just a little bit of breathing room in my budget, like that would be a win. And oftentimes those people find like, okay, once I've had a taste, like, oh, how deep does this rabbit hole go? Like, okay, this is pretty fun.
It really is I want to say it's a pretty safe way, right? Try entrepreneurship
Yeah,
because
it's a
you're not,
lower risk brand.
yeah, yeah, very good. You have a very good blog. I was checking out, it's one of the way I do research. I look at all the blog posts. So I'm just going to tee off on a couple of the titles because people might be curious, like what is a side hustle? And there's, I'm going to say hundreds. You're probably going to say, Jim, there's thousands, right? How to start a commercial cleaning business on the side and generate $100,000 in 9 months. I'm guessing from the very specific nature of your headlines, this is somebody you interviewed or that you know about.
Yes, this was an interview, and that's a very common headline formula for me. Like, oh, this financial result in this amount of time, and
Yeah.
sometimes like overcoming, that little objection, even if you had no ideas to start with, or even if you're still working a full time job or whatever. But yeah, in this case, a couple out of New Hampshire were trying to figure out how to make extra money, looking specifically for something that they could do after hours. Had a couple young kids, and so they'd bring the grandparents in at night, after they put the kids to bed, and they'd go out and do these commercial cleaning jobs. And then eventually, like, well, other people might be interested in this type
Mm.
of moonlight side hustle. Why don't we just go hire them? And then we don't have to go do it ourselves. So it was really interesting. Like, oh, we can bid this job based on the price we think we're going to have to pay a cleaner, and then double that. So we have margin for our own overhead and marketing expenses and some profit left over. And I was like, this is kind of cool because it's like in comparison to residential cleaning, like a lot less personal in a lot of ways. Like a lot of, if I'm going
Yeah.
to let somebody into my home, like, I kind of want to have a background check kind of process.
Hmm.
Like for restaurants and stuff, like they need it done almost on a nightly basis. And so lots of, recurring revenue opportunities. I thought it was a really interesting business, but yeah. And I've come across hundreds of examples of these. It's just never a dull moment.
One of them it really took me by surprise. How to start a six-figure car rental business on the side. I mean, is that there was an app that I used when we were living on the boat that people would let you use their car for certain prices. Is that what you're talking about, or is it something more
Yeah,
simple
this
than
one
that?
it was very app driven. In his case was through the Turo app,
Yes, that was
Turo.
it. Yep.
And I just made my first booking through Turo for a trip to Denver coming up in a couple months. Like, all right, well, I've never done this before. We'll see what happens. Somebody's Jeep hopefully meets us at the airport. Um, but yeah, in his case, it was kind of this math game, almost like an arbitrage game of like, well, here's going to be my cost to finance the car. Here's what I think I can rent it out for on a daily basis. Here's what I think the occupancy, so to speak, is going to be if I can rent it out 20 days a month, 25 days a month. And, here's my insurance expense. And, it's
Hmm.
like, is there any margin left over? Like, okay, in my case, yes. Now lather, rinse, repeat, build up the fleet, quit my job. It was, I mean, it's the same
Build
model
up the
that
fleet.
I think he had 14 cars, between him and a couple
Oh
partners.
my gosh.
And it's the same model of Hertz and Avis and Budget, but just on a smaller scale, just doing it locally. So that was one that, I mean, cars make me nervous, like so much liability involved. But
Mm.
if you got the insurance in place and you kind of like aren't personally attached to them, you start to look at them as assets instead of,
Yeah, it's not your baby.
transportation for your family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was interesting because when we were traveling on the boat, we'd stop a lot of times on the coast, we'd be in small towns. And there was one particular time at Thanksgiving, we wanted to try and get to my sister's. And but time was so small, there was no rental car place, or there was one and they had two cars and they were taken. And I don't know how we found it, but that was our first experience with Turos like 3 years ago. But it worked
Yeah.
out really, really. We got this very nice Honda, and I mean, we drove it like three hours each way, and it was, I don't know what it was, like $50 or something ridiculously inexpensive. But um, so I'm curious about because my wife Stephanie does podcast editing now, and she uses Canva, which is I'm sure you know what that is, obviously
Yep.
the art program. But one of your titles, 15 ways to make money using Canva, or up to $10,000 a month. So is this how non-artists create art for online marketers, or how do they do that?
Well, Canva is just an incredible piece of software, even on the free version, like the stuff
Hmm.
that you could do, the templates that they have to make different, I don't know, social media designs, YouTube thumbnails. That's like kind of how I use the software. Infographics, it's really cool. But you can create and sell your own templates. You can create like printable products and send those off to Etsy. You can create T-shirts and send them up to Redbubble or Merch by Amazon. It really is an interesting platform that has kind of empowered a generation of non-designers, like non-Photoshop level skill level people to go out and create something that looks halfway decent and other people might want to buy as well.
Yeah, it reminded me of a time. Gosh, let me think. At least I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. I could be slightly off, but I had a client in the photography business, and when digital cameras started coming out, everybody's now a photographer because you
Yeah.
can just fix everything right in the camera and stuff. And I mean, legitimately, a lot of photographers' businesses started going down. I wonder if Canva is going to have an impact on graphic designers. You know what I mean?
It is interesting. Some of the rise of AI, lots of AI writing tools, AI graphics tools. I don't know if you play around with Descript at all, but like this is a
Mm-mm.
edit video by editing text. Like it automatically transcribes it. And you just like I don't want that line in there. It chops it out of the video from you. If you messed up a
Ah,
line, it can do like overdub. If you fed it enough of your own audio,
really?
it can speak for you. It's like oh, this is getting dangerous, but
Now, what's
it's some
that
cool stuff.
program? I got to write this down.
It's called Descript.com.
Descript.com. Got to check that one out. Um, so, in other words, what I just read, the 15 ways to make money using Canva. So, so obviously doing podcast graphics. What else does Canva do?
Anything graphic design related, so social media graphics, YouTube thumbnails,
Mm,
t-shirt designs, logo designs.
got it.
It's kind of a powerful, graphics tool. It's all web based, and so people are using it. Create like I, would make workbooks in there for some of my programs, um, which I originally tried to make like in Microsoft Word, and my assistant was like, "Nick, Canva,
Microsoft Word.
Canva. You got to use Canva." I was like, really? I don't. And then I was like, oh yeah, she was right. Yeah, way so much easier to
You
do.
sound like
Trying
me
to.
when somebody says, "Jim, you ought to use this." I'm like, I don't want to learn something new.
Yeah,
Kicking
I
and
was totally like
scratching.
the old curmudgeon guy. Like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
This will be better. Like, no, she was right.
So you've I didn't even count how many books you published, but went to your Amazon page. You published a lot of books, including the title "The Side Hustle: How to Turn Your Spare Time into $1,000 a Month or More." What are the three business models that you write about? Like what are the three silos most often used for a side hustle?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to catch up to your publishing prowess here. I see all your covers behind you there. Uh, yeah, so the side hustle. This is free on Kindle for anybody in the U.S. store. Sidehustlenation.com/book. We'll get you over there. What this is all about is the three main business models that not just side hustles fall under, but almost any business in the world is going to fall under one of these three. It's selling a product, it's selling a service, or it's selling an audience. It's creating a content-based business, which is where I've spent most of my time is in this audience-based business,
Hmm.
just because it has more ultimately
What
more
do you mean
time
by that?
leverage.
What do you mean by selling an audience?
So it's think about like Facebook and Google as two examples of really big audience based businesses.
Okay.
They built the tool, they built the platform that is helpful, that is entertaining, and they attract people to that and they monetize with advertising and affiliate relationships. In my case, mostly advertising and affiliate relationships, like on a much smaller scale than obviously either of those two. But then on the product and service side, like very uh, simple to start, usually pretty low overhead to start, especially on the service side. Like
Hmm.
stick my flag out the window and say, "Hey, I'm a bookkeeper, I'm a dog walker, I'm a window washer." Like you name it, very low overhead, low startup costs to get going there.
So interesting. You wrote another book, 100 ways. Well, it actually says $1,000, 100 ways how real people make real money on the side, and you can too. So you write about the power of 1,000. First, before I go on, what did you mean about the power of 1,000? Is that just like a mindset thing?
Yeah, this is kind of just $10 is nice, $100 is nice, but $1,000, like all of a sudden starts to be pretty meaningful to somebody's budget, to somebody's income at the end of the year. And there was some data that half the population doesn't have $1,000 in an emergency fund or something. So it was like,
Right.
okay, this is a significant milestone for a lot of people. And this was a chance. I know it's a tongue twister of a title. I call it the 1K 100 Ways book. So 1K100ways.com is the
Okay.
redirect to get over to the Amazon listing for that. But this was a chance to showcase the incredible breadth of creativity and business models inside the Side Hustle Nation community. And this was um, just putting out the call like, hey, do you have a business? Do you have a side hustle that's earned this amount, either on a monthly basis or cumulatively so far? Let's hear about it. How did you come up with that idea? How did you get your first customers? How do you market this thing? What would you do differently if you had to start over? And kind of told in parallel, so you can really compare page to page and see what has worked for these different entrepreneurs.
It's very interesting. I was reading the table of contents in that book, which kind of reads like a checklist of side hustles. Knife and before I go there, my tired brain just kicked back in. I wanted to ask. So a couple minutes ago, you're talking about affiliates, right? As selling to an audience. I've always been fascinated with affiliate marketing. Most recently, my exposure to that was in these different boaters groups that I was part of, or people that you would follow, right? That have been doing it a long time. And they say, "Oh,
Yeah.
you ought to get to use this. Here's a link to my product on Amazon." Is that how people are making money? Like by creating a following through a blog or by things they know how to do, or
Yeah,
do I
very.
have that correct? Or go ahead and expand on that.
Yeah, very common in the blogger space, YouTuber space, like where I've established my credibility. Here's my review of this boating product. Check my affiliate link in the description below. Like you see a
Hmm.
lot of that. In the footwear website that I was running for lots of years, like it was a kind of data driven affiliate business. We pull in the catalogs from Zappos, from Amazon, from all these other retailers, tell you where you can find the best price, add in the coupon, like, and send people off on their way and earn affiliate commissions in that way. What people are like, where I've seen people have some success recently is in what I'll call the modern comparison shopping site, where you're creating kind of like very long tail, bottom of the buyer funnel type of content, product X versus product Y, this brand versus this brand. And it's like, people have, gone through their initial research. They've done their, uh, they've done their diligence. Now they're just kind of like, they've narrowed it down to these two or three choices, and they're looking for somebody to help them make their
I
decision.
know exactly what you're talking about. We were looking for something recently. I don't know if room heater or something. And all these sites came up and it had the look and feel of like the Consumers Report website,
Yeah.
but it could have been like the five best space heaters.com, right? And so somebody went and reviewed them, and every one of those links went to an Amazon or some other page. Those were affiliate links, correct?
Yeah, likely.
Very cool. I was surprised how many there were. I mean, I guess, why not? It's big business, right? If you're good at SEO and creating these websites and I'm guessing there's probably, a huge amount of people, but each person has a scad load of these websites. You call them review sites, right?
Yeah, those types of review sites or those types of comparison, the modern comparison shopping sites where,
Mm,
especially if you're operating in a niche, like the Wirecutter does an amazing job on product reviews, like across the whole spectrum. And it's obviously under the New York Times umbrella. So it has like really high domain authority and all these backlinks. So the way that a side hustler, a kind of scrappier entrepreneur might go about that is just starting with one niche. Like I'm going to review home fitness products. Like if you want to have a killer home gym, here's what it's going to be. This is, what I use for my squat rack, or this is what I use, for these like resistance bands, or whatever. Like, and you can kind of create the content around that and build up the topical authority.
very cool. So anyway, jump back to my previous question in
Yeah,
the
it's all
book.
good.
You talk about knife and tool sharpening, pressure washing, home organizer, and I'm like, what's involved if somebody says like home organizer? I'm pretty good at that. How do they? What are some of the steps somebody would go to if that was like, wow, I should do that on the side because I'm really good at that? How do you go about doing that? Like, what's step one, two, and three, in your opinion?
Yeah, in the example of home organizing, that's very straightforward to hopefully find a few friends and family to be, patient zero
Hmm.
testimonials for you. Like, hey, let me come in. Maybe I'll give you a sampler platter. Like, I'll do this closet or I'll do this dresser or this drawer for you. And if you like it, could you leave me a review on my, newly minted Google My Business profile or my newly minted Yelp profile? And you can just kind of start to build up some authority here. You can kind of play the referral game, and this, really for any business. I'm trying to think of, well, who are my target customers already doing business with? And instead of going like direct hand to hand combat, especially for a business to consumer type of business, like
Right.
like I was going door to door, like, okay, what's the more efficient way to go about that? Like, who are they already doing business with? And so maybe that's partnering with a home cleaning service for referrals. Like, hey, do you have anybody who you recommend for home organizing? Like, hey, while you're out on the job, would you mind passing off my card? Maybe you give them a 10% referral fee. Maybe you don't.
Mm.
Maybe it's just, and vice versa. Like, while you're out on the job, hey, do you need a cleaner? Like, hey, here's my recommended cleaning service. And so trying to think of people like that. And like for me in the painting business, instead of going door to door in year two, it was a booth at the Seattle Home Show. Over the course of the weekend, like 70,000 people or something like were going through this, convention. It's like, oh, this was a lot more efficient than going knocking on doors, trying to do hand to hand combat. But thinking about those strategic partners or those referral partnerships, and then finally, like after you've kind of validated the idea with real customers, real dollars, it's like then I kind of go through the process of creating the website and building
Mm.
out the more officially branded presence. And the reason for that is like it's time consuming. It's not expensive to do, but it's just kind of like putting the cart before the horse in a lot of ways. We're like, okay, is this something that I enjoy doing? Is this something that has some legs?
So it really sounds like one of the I don't want to say mantras, but one of the things that's most true about side hustles is you could start on a shoestring budget just to see if it works. Like you could start a home organizing business without building a website and getting business cards, brochures. You can just start, right?
Yeah, you
Usually with
just
the
can.
contacts you have on your phone.
Yeah, well, I don't have an audience, but it's like, well, everybody has a lifetime of email history contacts. The average person has a couple hundred Facebook friends, LinkedIn connections, your neighborhood uh, peer group, even just like your homeowners. People are just like thinking about like going around dropping flyers off around. Hey, this is what I'm doing. If I was starting a business tomorrow, I love power washing. Just like it's just a very satisfying thing to do. I think it has kind of this viral potential. Like, well, your neighbor sees you doing it, so he's like, "Hey, would you come up? Why don't you? How much to do my
And you get
driveway
to see the
next?"
fruits of your labor. Like my son's a landscaper.
It's
It's
yeah.
not an easy job, but he gets to every day he gets to see those perfect lines
Yeah, it's
that he
instant
puts in people's
gratification.
lawns.
Um,
Oh my goodness. All right, we got about 2 minutes left. Nick, what holds a lot of people back from starting a side hustle? I get starting a real, I don't want to say it's not a real business, but starting a business like full time or going into whatever it is, that's certainly got more risk than a side hustle. So, and you've interviewed a lot of people on your podcast. What holds most people back from even giving it a shot?
the people I see kind of stuck on the entrepreneurial sidelines are the ones waiting for that lightning strike of inspiration with that never before seen business idea, or that
Yeah.
this is going to be perfect for me. It's like it's in total alignment with I my skills, and it's just I don't know. I don't know if the perfect business idea exists. Maybe the perfect business idea is the one that you're willing to take action on, to take that first step,
Yes.
even if you don't know steps 2 through 10. Like it's the act of figuring it out as you go that really separates the people who have success from it versus the ones who are kind of perpetually stuck in
Couldn't agree
if
more.
in idea mode.
You don't have to know all the steps, but you got to take step one and see and see where that takes you. Nick, how can people connect with you? I think I'm fascinated by the whole side hustle thing. You have the Side Hustle Nation, so maybe that's the best place. But give some contact information if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, would love to have you tune into the Side Hustle Show. It's you can find it in any podcast app. It's you just search Side Hustle, it'd be the green cover art with my mug on it. New business ideas each and every week. SideHustleNation.com/ideas. If you are in that idea searching stage, this is my constantly updated laundry list of ideas. No opt-in required over there. And then Jim mentioned a couple of books as well as kind of entry into the realm of possibilities.
And so let me just point out a couple of smart things Nick did. First of all, he gave you a couple different places how to collect some information for free, how to get the books, how to listen to his podcast. I mean, he's obviously done a lot of interviews, but if you're going to be doing that to promote yourself on podcasts, etc., he just did a very good job of doing that. Oh, you can reach me by my email. No, he did a really good job. So anyway, I applaud you and your podcast guest skills there, Nick Loper.
Well, the more, I mean, while we're talking about that, like if we want to, deep dive on how to make a good podcast guest appearance, like the next level would be like, hey, for Jim's listeners, I put together a special bonus offer on, this free worksheet on how to come up with your next business idea. Go to sidehustlenation.com/Captain Jim. And, but like, didn't put any of that. So that would be kind of like next level, like to go straight for the jugular, like email capture, which I see a lot of people do. And it can be very effective. Like, what's the bonus? What's like kind of the logical next thing, like after hearing this, that somebody might want to take action on? Like, what would be a way to capture that lead?
Well, if I have you back sometime next year, you can launch that launch that one when I ask you the question again.
All right.
Nick, thanks so much, man. It was great talking with you.
You bet. Thanks.
Hey, folks, that wraps up this very special interview with my guest, Nick Loper. I highly recommend you connect with him, learn from him, follow him. He's the real deal. He really knows a lot about side hustle. Great information on his website. He's a real giver and server. He's really filling that niche very well. You can connect with me at getjimpalmer.com. That's my home base. If you're interested in joining me and about 28 other smart entrepreneurs in the Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program, go to dreambizcoaching.com. Remember, you can get all 6 of my books handsomely displayed behind me. They are free. It's part of my legacy building program. So at Amazon, the Kindle books are all free. They're free as Nook books at Barnes & Noble, which is B&N. And they're also in the iBook store. But that's it. Until this time next week, another fantastic interview. I am Captain Jim Palmer. I am the Dream Business Coach, and you take good care. Thanks a lot, Nick.